I just kind of fell into it. In my off hours, I'm a grave robber. You didn't hear that wrong. I go to cemeteries in the night, I take a shovel, I dig up graves. I rob the treasures people were buried with. Then I sell them off. I am a grave robber. I know it's a hell of a bombshell to drop on people. Maybe I should start from the beginning. 4 months ago, I was in one of the worst financial binds of my life. I had been working in a takeout place for the past couple of years. As you can imagine, the pay in a gig like that is about the shittiest allowable under the law. I wish I could say I was doing it to get through school, but that would have involved me going to school. I wasn't. I didn't know what I was doing with my life, or where I wanted to end up. I just sort of was coasting through, doing the bare minimum to get from one day to the next. One day I was driving my Porsche to work. Don't read that too literally. I named my rusted out Hyundai Porsche. Along the way I heard it. First there was a sputter, then there was a rattle, then I felt the thing shudder, and then my car was dead. As you might imagine, being a month behind on the electric, and with rent due in a week, I needed this about as much as I needed a heavyweight boxer punching me in the balls. I pushed the thing into a parking lot, locked the door, and walked the few additional blocks into work. I was in a mood the whole time I work. You can't exactly get excited making chicken wraps for people while you're earning minimum wage and probably out of a job given that you can no longer get to and from work. One of the other workers, a grimy middle-aged guy we just called Jackson, noticed my mood. "Why you acting like your sister just bit off your dick?" "Why you acting like your sister bit your dick off?" He had a way with words. "You care about a non-stripper?" "Well, you can screw off then, asshole. Forget I asked." "My car died." "Get it fixed." "Yeah, I don't have that kind of money." "Let me take a look at it after work." I scoffed. "Yeah, how much is that going to cost?" "Less than a mechanic?" I agreed to Jackson's offer, mostly because I had absolutely nothing to lose. Though the shift dragged on, we did finally mercifully get off. I hopped into Jackson's car, a horror the likes of which has never been topped since in life, and we drove to my dead car. Jackson popped the hood and poked around at the engine for a bit. I figured he was just faking it, but soon enough he slammed down the hood and announced, "Yep, she's dead." "Fuck! Get a new one." "I don't shit gold bars, Jackson." Jackson started to size me up. The way he was looking at me was strange. I didn't know if he was going to try to buy a kidney off me or pimp me out in the local ghetto. My fears only got worse when I heard him say, "Hey kid, I got a proposition for you. I'm not sucking anything. Nah, don't get me wrong. This job's going to get you dirty, but it's wash your hands dirty. Nothing worse." I didn't know whether to run or what. But if the guy was dropping me a lifeline, I was out of options. "Okay, what are we doing?" "Hop in the car, kid. You'll see." Jackson drove us up a stretch of highway not far outside the city. He pulled us off into the woods. This was all screaming dodgy to me. I had no choice, really. He had me get out and then pop the trunk of his car. He grabbed a shovel and said, "All right, grab one." "The fuck are we doing?" "You'll see. Now grab a shovel." I did as I was told, and we tromped off into the woods. There was an overgrown pathway leading back in. It didn't say much of anything except warning me to watch my step here and there. Soon we got to it. "Here we go, kid. This is a cemetery." "It's more than that, kid. It's a decrepit, abandoned cemetery. Nobody patrols this place." So? "So pick one, kid. We got all night." I couldn't believe what this scumbag was having me do. Was he really gonna dig up a grave? I wasn't. That fucking chance, dude. I'm out of here. "What?" "They buried these stiffs with all kinds of gold and shit back then. I know a guy at the pawn shop. We dig 'em up, we sell 'em the goods on the side. It's easy money." "I'm not grave robbing, dude." "What?" "They ain't complaining, kid. I'll tell you what. We'll only take from the ones that don't tell us to stop. How's that sound?" "It's grave robbing." "Yeah, so it's a little frowned upon. You need the money. You think the company that owns Top Choice Takeout is going to give it to you? So we're robbing the dead. Those pricks are robbing the living. Take a cue, kid. You've got to rob to get ahead in this world. Now we digging or what?" I don't know if he actually had a point or what, or if I was just desperate. But I finally agreed. I pointed to the headstone in the corner of the place. It made sense to be methodical about this. He put our shovels in the dirt and we got to work. 2 men digging a 6-foot hole is not a quick or easy task. It takes hours. It took us hours. I wondered if we'd been wasting our time when we hit something. It was the badly deteriorated lid of a coffin. We cleared away the dirt from the lid and pried it loose. I thought a little bit while digging about what it might be like when we encountered the body. Even under Jackson's flashlight, this was something I wasn't ready for. The body was dried flesh, largely flaked away from the bone underneath. I tried not to smell anything, but the truth is there wasn't much aroma besides the smell of dirt. Jackson got to work. The body must have been a woman because there were necklaces and rings on it. Jackson got busy stripping them off. I hardly knew what to do. I just stood there while he did it. It took us a bit to get out of there, but there was a nice little bag of loot. Covering the thing up was a tad easier than the digging, since we could just push the dirt back into the pit. Jackson tossed the bag of loot into his car, then we drove off. I didn't say a word. I was tired, dirty, shocked at what we'd done, and more than a bit worried we'd get caught. We arrived at the pawn shop about 3:30 a.m. Jackson brought me in and introduced me to the owner. He just called him Carter. Carter knew where we'd gotten the loot from. He didn't ask questions. He offered us an absurdly low price for the haul. I tried to protest, but Jackson just explained that this was the cost of discretion. In spite of it, I walked out with a nice cut. I couldn't argue with $500. Jackson asked, "So what are you going to do with the money?" "Damned if I know. It's not enough to get a car that runs." "Kid, you agree to keep going out to the cemetery with me, and I'll agree to drive you around for a while. We'll be digging buddies." I thought about it for a while. Alright. That night after a long shower I slept. I had a disturbing dream. I was in a cemetery in the daytime. I was planting flowers on a grave when I heard the voice that called me. I turned around and saw a figure off in the distance. As I walked toward it, I saw a decayed woman from the grave. She pointed at me, and though her mouth didn't move, I heard a disembodied, raspy voice hauntingly saying, "Thief! Thief! Thief!" I woke up in a sweat. I hoped this wasn't going to be a regular thing. Jackson picked me up early in the morning. He joked a bit about how I looked tired. Then he suggested I get used to it. The routine was pretty much like the routine always was at the takeout place. Show up, punched in, get yelled at by managers, wish you were dead, go on break, wish you were dead again, go home. Only we didn't go home. We went on another cemetery adventure. We dug up the adjacent grave to last night's. It was somewhat disappointing for a haul, but we got a few things. There was a watch, a ring, a gold tie tack, not much else. Carter paid us, and I got my cut, $300. No nightmares that night. Jackson wanted to go out for a third night in a row, but I told him I needed some sleep. He wondered if I was getting cold feet on the thing, but I told him I really did need to catch up on some sleep, but was up for the night after. He reluctantly agreed, and true to my word, I was there for another grave. We got another impressive haul on this one. Thank you, Reverend something or other. My cut was a good $600. This was more than enough now to buy a run-down used car and have something to get around in. Jackson could figure it out and was curious. "So does this mean you're out of the game?" I thought about it. It was tough work. It was illegal. It was kind of creepy. And it was also paying for my car. No, I'm in it for the long haul. The dream came again that night. It was similar to the previous one. I was back in the cemetery in the daytime. I was putting a wreath on a grave. There were piles of dirt everywhere. I heard the noise again and turned around. Now there were 3 bodies, standing there, pointing at me. It was a chorus now. I awoke with a start. Tough break, fellas. This gig paid well. Jackson and I kept up the grave robbing for several months. We were indeed becoming diggin' buddies. We'd be at work prepping chicken meat. One of us would hold up a bone and say, "Remind you of anything?" We'd shovel lettuce onto the wraps. Oh, and the puns and jokes were everywhere. I was doing pretty good with the regular money coming in. I was catching up on bills, even starting to put some money in the bank. Of course, the dreams kept coming. More and more corpses would be there each time, pointing. Their voices were turning into a legion of angry corpses. I stopped even waking up. I was getting flippant in the dreams, even so far as to say, "Are you done yet?" When I got to work one day, Jackson wasn't there. I figured he took the day off and went on about working. I went home, and after work I checked my messages. There was one there, so I played it. It was Jackson. "Hey kid, a clip for a little baggie I had. I don't want to talk about it and what was in it. I need someone to bail me out. It's gonna take at least $1,000. I know it's a big favor, but digging buddies gotta do each other favors, right?" Yeah, Jackson, that's a hell of a favor. I didn't have a full $1,000 to spare at that moment, but I knew how to get it. A solo job. I pulled into the woods at sunset, got my shovel, and headed off to the cemetery. If those things took a long time to dig up with 2 people, 1 was a nightmare. By 4 I was getting ready to quit, but I finally hit a lid. I cleared off the dirt and tossed the shovel out of the pit. As I opened the lid, it started to rain. The guy was loaded with stuff. Best haul yet. I picked and picked and picked the jewelry off him, loading it into my goodie bag. The rain was coming down in sheets now. It started pooling down in the grave. I picked the body clean of trinkets and hauled myself over the edge of the grave. I stood up on the edge. I felt the soil give away underneath. I lost my footing, fell back into the grave with a splash and a thud. The fall was jarring, so much so I didn't immediately notice that half my femur was sticking out of my thigh. I tried to pull myself out of the pit, but the dirt just kept crumbling away at my hands. I was far too heavy to pull out with one leg. As I looked up the lip of the grave, the torrential downpour was causing clumps and blobs of the mud to start washing into the grave. I could see the impending mudslide. I turned next to me, and floating was the closed-mouthed corpse I'd just plundered. I know. Thief! The mud ensured he'd have plenty of time to give me a lecture.